Are you the fanatic we're looking for? Welcome to the Mrs. R Relevant Daily Draft Podcast, part of the Draft Professor Podcast Network. Thank you very much for tuning in to today's episode. We look forward to seeing you in a couple of seconds. Here we are. We are live. This is the Mrs. R Relevant Daily Draft Podcast. I am here with Randall and Jacob, and this is going to be the second of our 3 tight end episodes covering a very deep tight end class in this draft. But before we get going, Jacob, you arrived home safely. I know that you had a little bit of a drive to get there today.
Yeah, so I ended up where I was a little bit further north in Ohio. Was pretty icy and snowy, but about the time I started down the road, about 40 or so miles, I ended up hitting much warmer weather, and by warmer I mean like 40 degrees. I don't mean anything significant, but it's better to avoid snow and ice.
Above 32.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah. And Jacob, like, it's funny, right? Because I'm in Southern Ohio like you, and like while it was cold outside, I didn't see any white stuff at all. So I am glad that you made it back home safely. Randall, how are you doing?
Oh, I'm doing well. It was like 55 degrees out here, so I'm down south in Arkansas. So we might get a nice storm in January, and that's about it. And I pray that doesn't happen.
Cool. Well, we are going to talk about some tight ends today. And the first one we're going to talk about, it's a big one. Like, this is a name, if you are not familiar with Harold Fannin, you're going to hear his name called pretty early on draft day. Jacob, you want to tell us what your scouting report is and how early that might be?
I'm probably in the extreme overdraft of him, probably, because like I would take him early day 2 and have absolutely no qualms doing it. And it's a lot of that has to do with kind of the upside potential, because he's coming from Bowling Green. I'm very familiar with the MAC around, down here in Athens. And so I know that it's a smaller level of competition and things of that nature. And 6'3", 231, he's a little bit smaller. We got him 6'4" on here, but I've seen some places say 6'3". It just depends. So he's a little bit like kind of lean in terms of wanting to put him, if you're thinking more of an inline guy. But the vertical athleticism is insane. Like what he can do to press down the seam and just the overall athleticism. I totally was meant to bring this up and I didn't do it. I'm not the guy that's like going to sit here and tell you that PFF grades are the be all end all or anything crazy like that. I think they have a lot of good data and they do a lot of good things. But something I do want to highlight on him is that they have him in 95.9 receiving grade this year, which is insane. I don't know that I've seen that from any player, typically in college football, like those numbers. 1,300 yards, 13.4 yards per carry, 9 touches. He is Bowling Green's offense. Everybody knows he's Bowling Green's offense. They know they're going to run the offense through him. They still can't do a damn thing about it. Like, nobody can do anything about it. Strong hands, good physical play strength. Needs a lot of work as a blocker, maybe a little bit more size to be in line. Sometimes the press coverage can knock him off a little bit, depending on if it's a bigger, more physical, like box safety, because he is a little bit leaner. But in terms of just pure athletic receiving ability, you're not going to find someone in this class with more of that than Harold Fannin.
Yes. What do you think, Randall?
I very much agree. And it's very funny that you brought that up, because we've talked about PFF grades and how we don't really trust them. And then one of my things is where he can really just line up anywhere as a receiving. And you mentioned that he had a 95.5. He also has a receiving grade for PFF of over 90 in 9 of 12 possible spots on the field. So short, intermediate, and deep, left, middle, right, all over 90, which is insane. I mean, he's got touchdowns everywhere as well. He's got 3 touchdowns on passes air yards of 20 or more. 2 in intermediate, 3 in short, and 1 behind the line of scrimmage, all while his yards per route run is 3.65, as you mentioned. He is Bowling Green's offense, and for a tight end to have 3.65 yards per route run is pretty insane. I've got a weird theme in my scouting report, and I'll finish it off to make sure that I don't go on the overdrafted, because, Jacob, I'm a little bit on your side as well. But his route running does show a lack of athleticism in that short and intermediate. You can see him round out some routes and things along those lines just to kind of get open. I feel like I always say ego is a good thing, but his ego kind of gets in the way because he knows that he can overpower people in that, who he's playing for, and just make those catches and go sort of thing. I agree with you. I love the yak. I love the seam routes. 750 yards of his 1342 come from yak at 7.5 yards after the catch per reception. That's insane. He's not afraid of the middle of the field either with his unreal hands. Only had 3 drops on 128 targets, so that's a reception rate of 80%, which is nuts. And even when we're talking about the competition, he still posted 11, 137 and a touchdown against Penn State. Texas A&M, he did an 8, 145 and 1 touchdown. So it's not like he's just playing scrubs on a constant basis. Now, what I see with his route running and things along those lines is it kind of gives me like a Travis Kelce vibes. And what it is Travis Kelce doesn't run the greatest of routes, but he knows where to sit, and he gets open, and he uses his body as leverage and physicality. When he's running those routes, you can see him, like if a cornerback is kind of grabbing his arm, he hits that down. Like he gets it out of the way, and that's actually a tool to use to gain separation as well, so I really like to see that. I do have him as an early second round as well, because I think his upside is there for it. He does kind of remind me of Travis Kelce, to be honest with you. But the thing is that the way Travis Kelce is becoming historical was he was on the Chiefs with a great quarterback and a great system. And that connection of Patrick Mahomes and Travis Kelce, what makes him historically great. So I think with years in the NFL, Harold Fannin can be a very, very good tight end as long as he gets into that scheme and be able to use him to his absolute potential.
So, couple questions. How athletic would you say Fannin is, like, as far as, let's say, some of the raw testing that's going to happen at the combine? Are you expecting him to test through the roof, or do you think he's going to be just a really good athletic tight end?
I think the jumping stuff he'll probably do really well. I'm sure his 40 time will be good for his size, because I know some of what you were talking about, Randall, like the body control stuff mixed with the athleticism isn't completely there. Like you said, I love how you characterize the like arrogance of who he's going against, because I had never thought about it that way, but you saying that, I'm like, oh my goodness, that's exactly what he does.
It's like, a good thing, though. It's a good thing,
right? Like he's never going to have a confidence issue. Like that's never like. But I think I'm fairly confident he'll test well, because I think that side of the athleticism stuff is there for him.
Yeah, I agree. I would like to see. I think it'll meet expectations, sort of thing. I think he'll be good in some, like the shuttle might not be as great and things along those lines. But I think that really when it comes down to Harold Fannin is watching the tape and then just meeting the expectations at the combine and then go from there.
Yeah.
Okay. So when you guys were, or Jacob, when you were saying like he jumps, so everybody knows when I was making the photo of him right there, he was jumping over a player. But you don't see the other player because I rubbed them out of the photo. So I was pretty sure I was pretty sure from the jumping standpoint that he would do well. But okay, the next tight end, Gunnar Helm from Texas. Oh, Randall, do you have something to say?
Oh yeah, I'm going to start off Gunnar Helm if that's all right.
Okay, got it.
All right, Gunnar Helm, 6'5", 250. From what in the other high school, he ran a 4.75 40. He was a 3-star prospect. One of the greatest things that I love about him is he does have a really good motor and physicality. He brings to every single down. He doesn't stop on scrambles, always goes to the right spot sort of thing. I was watching the Michigan game, and I actually consider him as one of the key plays to a touchdown in that game that Matthew Golden caught on a scramble while they were running around. Gunnar Helm was running around, got into the end zone, and as he was looking at the ball, he set a pick for Matthew Golden, but he was still active in the play, and that motor led him to get that touchdown. And I believe that was a big kind of like just circumvent of me watching tape and seeing Gunnar Helm and what he does. He's got great hands. He has a reception rate of over 80% on 49 catches for 611 yards and 5 touchdowns, 2 drops, and he's 3 for 3 on contested catches. So we're talking 100% on that. He's mainly used in line, can go in the slot and out wide. He's actually decent out wide as well. His run after the catch is super smooth. That's probably the second thing I love. He can catch that ball, not lose a step, and keep going. That's pretty much how he gets his yards after the catch as well. He's got 7 after the catch per reception, which is really good. His crossers are great. He's got a good stiff arm to continue his vertical as well. So if he's hitting those intermediate crossers, he has that length to push those linebackers down and keep going. Love that as well. Really good in zone. He's really good in zone sitting down. And to be honest, I think it's his work ethic and everything along those lines. Reading reports and seeing interviews along those lines, everybody says that he's consistently in the film room watching film. He's consistently in the gym working out, and he's always has that big motor on him. So his IQ for zone is really, really good, and I really like watching him in that department. My favorite thing is his work ethic. I mean, for a college kid, for seeing it in a multiple standpoints of people saying he's sitting in the film room, he's sitting in the gym sort of thing, is when the offseason comes and those combine interviews are hitting and those pro day interviews are hitting, he's going to stand out. He's going to be able to go to that whiteboard and people, and the teams are going to ask him to run. What's your favorite play? He'll put that up in 2 seconds. What defense is this? He'll put it up in 2 seconds. So I think that he's going to excel in this offseason to show who he really is. Limited production this final year is a little concerning, but he has been consistent in the last 2 years. Texas offense has been weird with switching quarterbacks and things along those lines, so I don't take that really too much to heart. I have him as my tight end 4 in this draft, based on what I feel like NFL teams are going to see him as, and in those offseason combines and stuff. His interviews are great, things along those lines. Right now, he kind of reminds me of who Dawson Knox is right now. Dawson Knox came out as just a blocker, and then he learned how to pass catch with Josh Allen. But he's that kind of that hybrid that does really well at both, but not kind of like at a George Kittle level sort of thing, but maybe a step below. He can line up in right in line as a tight end, but doesn't really show his cards if it's a pass or run because he's a good blocker and a good pass catcher. He's got great hands and things along those lines. As my tight end 4, I have him in the top 64. I'm not sure where he would fall. Obviously, Harold Fannin, I will put before him, and then Gunnar Helm next. Jacob, what'd you see?
One thing about him, the zone thing, when he sees zone coverage, he's licking his chops. I know exactly where the hole is, and I'm going to find, I'm going to settle in there. And dude, like you can tell he just instantly knows where he needs to be, which is something Travis Kelce does really well. Him and he's got that connection with Mahomes where he's like, oh, here's the hole, this is where I need to sit. The thing about his blocking that I really love, and it kind of goes to what you talked about with his motor. If he gets beat or blown back, he's going to recover. Like, he's going to recover, and he's going to keep playing through. He's going to get his hands back on the defensive lineman, the linebacker, whoever it is that he's out there blocking. That motor is going to go. He's going to stay looking for work when he's a blocker. Everybody's going to miss some blocks, but he's going to do everything he can to recover. And I think he does a pretty good job of recovering when those situations arise. One thing I think about him, I agree with everything you said about him as a pass catcher. I love the body control on sideline throws, and in the red zone as well. I think he adjusts well. I have a note on here that he can reel in a good amount of poorly thrown passes, which Quinn Ewers in the injury and some things that's gone on this year. There have been some plays that Gunnar Helm's had to really go and make. And I think he stepped up in some of those moments. Being a Browns fan, it's kind of been a roller coaster with David Njoku sometimes, but what he can do with his body control in the end zone, specifically in those big moments, I think some of that is in Gunnar Helm's game, just the ability to adjust and reel in, when the pass is already in the air. I think he's got a wide catch radius. I think he's what a modern NFL tight end is, and I think he's not a finished product in either aspect of the game. So I think he has a really nice ceiling. And talking about him being like, I'm with you. I'm tight end 4. But I think he's really good, and it just speaks to what this tight end class is.
Oh, yeah.
Do you have Helm? Do each of you have Helm above Mason? Is Mason Taylor below Helm on both of your boards?
Yes.
Mason Taylor is my 5, tight end 5.
Yeah.
Got it.
I think I got him 6.
No,
you're right. I got him 5. Yeah. There it is.
Too much similarity.
Okay. Next tight end, Kamari Morales from Boston College. Is that you, Randall?
Jacob, you want to go first?
I didn't know if you guys had decided who was going first for each player.
We can rotate. We can rotate. Unless I can start off with Kamari
You
Morales.
got it.
Yeah.
I lost the tab.
No worries. Kamari Morales, Boston College, 6'3", 249. Some reports are coming out that he could run a 4.7 40, which is good for 249. 3-star prospect. He was the number 19 tight end in his class, started at UNC, then went to Boston College. Production is light in his career that he started in 2019, so he's been in the league for a while. He has 26 catches for 311 yards and 6 touchdowns. His efficiency stats show in games like Virginia, where he went 5 for 5 for 77 and 1 touchdown. SMU, he went for 6 targets for 4 catches, 34 yards and 1 touchdown. Louisville, 3 for 3 with a touchdown. My favorite thing about Kamari is his first step. His first step is super explosive, and he can get to the level sitting in a 3-point stance pretty quickly, and that's kind of where he gains separation on his intermediate routes, whether it be an out dig or a post inside or a slant. He has that first explosion where it's really, really well. He's 5 for 5 on passes of the middle of the field and intermediate air yards, and 3 of them being touchdowns. So that explosion really helps him in the red zone as well, so then he can get open quick, catch, run, get to that end zone, which I do like. Super reliable hands, and including in that, he only has 6 drops in his 6 years at college, 0 drops this year. So reliable hands to call. Look at his stat sheet. It's 6 targets, 6 catches sort of thing. It's very impressive. He is a little undersized at 6'3", 249, and I'm curious to see what during his combine what he will put it at. But his block with that 6'3", 249, his blocking technique isn't great. He loses reps, but his responsibility is not that tall in college, so it's not really showing, and that makes me a little nervous for the NFL. He basically will kind of just divert the defender, hopefully open up a lane, or just move him around so the running back can get through, sort of thing. He will stand his ground in the run game, but he doesn't build his own lanes. He gets taken out of some design runs that are maybe if they add an extra offensive lineman or if they have full 12 personnel. Sometimes he does get taken out. Let's see what else. His pass protection is okay. He's allowed 2 pressures on 23 blocking snaps, so that's decent, but it's still very subpar. I would say probably blocking might be the thing he needs to work most at. I do have him as a midday 3, but kind of an early midday 3, maybe end of 4th, early 5th. Start as a tight end 3, and hopefully he can become a tight end 2 in the NFL. He's got a really good foundation. He just kind of needs to put it all together. Jacob, what did you have?
I had an interesting. I saw obviously I don't think he's quite where this guy was as a prospect coming out, but I saw a comparison to Pat Freiermuth that kind of made a little bit of sense to me. Obviously, I think Freiermuth was a more polished prospect coming out, but I think that there were some similarities. I think the thing that really sticks out is as you talked about, not a lot of drops. The natural hand catcher does a really good job, strong hands to pluck the ball out of the air and away from defenders and things. He doesn't let it get into his body, which we've seen major issues with. I'm not going to mention his name, but there's some body catchers in Cleveland that have not worked out. I don't know what we're talking about. But you know, it's not giving that opportunity for it to pop straight up and turn into an interception. I think he does a really good job varying his speeds. I wouldn't call his long speed elite, but it's enough to get vertical in the seam routes, especially if he draws a matchup against a linebacker in coverage, some things like that. He may be able to outrun them. I've seen flashes as a run blocker. It's not consistent, but when you see those flashes, you at least think, hey, get him some coaching, work on the techniques, add a little bit of power and strength, that kind of thing. And I think he can come up there. But there's one thing that you cannot teach that I love about these guys on day 3, these day 3 prospects. I got him in day 3 prospect as well, probably 5th round, is somewhere around there is where I've got him. He's going to compete hard snap to snap. And I'm always like, when we're in the day 3 and we're talking about these guys, and you're like you said, Randall, like bringing him in as a day 3 prospect, a tight end 3, those guys got to work their tail off to make the roster and stay on the roster. And I don't think you're going to have an issue with that aspect of it with Morales.
I very much agree.
Okay, next, Thomas Fideon from Nebraska.
Hold on. I'll find it. There it is. Found it. All right. Thomas Fideon out of Nebraska, 6'5", 225. I think he's a really smooth, fluid athlete. I think he moves really well. They really featured him. What did I have going into? I don't have. That's not it. I don't see it. I think he's a real smooth, fluid athlete. Does a really good job, I think, after the catch. It just kind of, he's used more as a weapon, it felt like, than any other type of. Where did I lost his blocking numbers. Yeah. Oh, wow. Hey, having a technical difficulty? That's not possible.
Okay. I didn't see him as a great blocker personally when I was watching his games. He gets pushed around in the run game and on the outside of it. He does well when he's far in the outside and he gets to that second level and he can kind of block as running when he has that momentum speed. But he needs work on anchoring, to be honest, because when he's in that blocking and he's in line with the tight end, then he gets pushed back. He gets pushed back like almost immediately every single time, one or two. He's a big wideout rather than a tight end. The issue is that he's like 6'3", 6'6", 255. So if you're looking at, like, I have him as sitting and maybe as a wide receiver 3 without maybe being able to move as much outside of wide receiver 3, maybe a wide receiver 2 sort of thing, unless he can get that blocking going. But you're right. He's a fluid route runner. He kind of is a little bit like, he's not robotic in his movements because he's fluid, but it's like, okay, I have to run it out. And then he like does the same thing every single time. He's got his route running down in his head and it's kind of like a quick motion for him. So it does work. He isn't the best decelerator for, 6'6", 255 sort of thing, but he does it and it does work, especially when he goes into the middle of the field sort of thing. So he can decelerate. He can move his feet pretty quickly, and then he has a little shoulder shrug on him that can kind of burn linebackers once in a while. So I do like his short and intermediate throws when it comes down to it. I believe, and correct me if I'm wrong, but Fideon does have another year of eligibility. And with Raiola coming into his sophomore year, I think it would be kind of smart for him to stay in Nebraska, see if he can beef up that production in his last season with Raiola on his second year, and then maybe he can move up. I have a late day 3 on him, and then probably sneaking in the 6th or 7th.
I got what I lost. Are you guys ready?
Go for it.
Just a little bit more. I do think that he has the frame to add some size that would help him out a ton on the inline stuff. I'm having a night tonight, guys. Yeah. But yeah, no, the short area quickness is kind of what I like probably the most, and what he can do in some of that quick passing game and stuff.
Is the 6'5", 225 that I have up there, is that close to what you guys had him at?
I had 255, but let me double check.
Oh, I do have 255 too, yeah.
Okay.
Why did I still think
when I'm pulling heights and weights, it's whatever Google can give me quickly.
Yeah, 255.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, 255.
Okay, next player.
Oh, nope, go ahead.
Jacob, okay, Rivaldo Faieweather from Auburn.
Let's go here. Oh, of course. That's the one that's not. I'm just.
Jacob, I can start. No worries.
I'm sorry.
Okay.
No, you're good. I got it. All right, we got Rivaldo Faieweather from Auburn. 6'4", 252. From what I've seen in reports, he could run about a 4.70 40. He was a 3-star prospect and a 4-star transfer, so I kind of always love adding that star in the transfer. Played basketball and football in high school, and he was very good at basketball. So I do always love seeing tight ends with good basketball traits because that can happen easily in his position. He started at Florida International, went to Auburn. He had a bunch of offers and chose Auburn. So, a little surprised at that because I dislike Auburn myself. But he has a good frame and length in size, and he has expanded catch radius with that length. You can see kind of in those arms on that picture. And it leads to more catchable targets and good hands to make those targets. He only has 2 drops on 50 targets this year and has caught 5 contested catches on 15 opportunities. His route tree is a little limited. His short routes are okay, and he's good at going to the flat, but his best is running through the flow of traffic and intermediate crossers and such like that. Auburn is a widespread offense, so he's using the slot and out wide a good margin. But I'm a little worried about his TD production. At 6'4", 252, he has 6 touchdowns in 2023, but it went down to 2 this year. So the production fell a little bit in a stat that I kind of wanted to see. He's an okay blocker. 40% of his snaps are blocking, but they sometimes give him tall tasks. And I'm not sure if it's what Auburn's doing, but I kind of almost blame it on Auburn sometimes. Obviously, I was watching the Arkansas game live, and they were giving him one-on-ones with Landon Jackson, who will be probably a first-round draft pick or an early second. And he won a couple of them, which was kind of impressive, but he also lost some pretty heavily, and I was kind of nervous about that. But he's an okay blocker. From what I've seen, he's been battling an undisclosed injury for the past month that's limited, but he's been playing the games. So basically, Monday rolls around, he's not practicing. Practices the day before it comes out and plays sort of thing. So that could be an issue with how much field he's seeing and things along those lines. I'm curious about that. He does need to do some work in the blocking game and some in the receiving game. I do think he is a draftable in the round 4, round 5, like we have discussed in a couple of these tight ends. But he is one of those as well that has a really good foundation. He just needs to kind of put that blocking together because I don't think his receiving game is good enough to just be a receiving tight end. He's got to do both.
Yeah, and I think Bill in the comments kind of highlighted it that he does just disappear from time to time as a receiver. Yeah. And like you said, if you're not going to be able to be an impactful blocker and you're going to disappear from time to time, that's a problem. You got to be at least consistent in one or the other if you're not going to be able to do both. I do like his ability to separate at times. I think he moves really well, pretty fluid. I've used this phrase before, but he's one of those fluid movers that I think does so and has the body control to adjust to the ball in the air, which also gives him the ability to make slight adjustments and changes to his routes to try to give a little bit of separation and an easier target. Like you said, he's got the long arms. I think he should have a bigger catch radius than what I've seen. I think from time to time, sometimes he doesn't fully extend. This was an issue I had with Michael Woods, the Browns wide receiver, when he was at Oklahoma. He would do some of those things where he's got these real long arms, so he should be able to, extend out and reach and make some more catches than what he does. And I think Faieweather has shown you that he can do those things. It's just like we've said about him as a receiver, it's just a consistency thing. Like if you're talking about all the tools, the athleticism, the size, the length, I think he's got enough power. And I think he's a smart player when it comes to understanding what he needs to do in terms of as a run blocker, because I can see it. I can see it's there. It's just not executed right all the time. So yeah, day 3 guy, but I do think if it all comes together that he can be a tight end 1 for somebody. It's just a big if right now.
For sure. Is it a yellow flag that he hurt his eye using a jugs machine? Because Did it go through his hands?
Oh, that's a unique situation I've never heard of.
Yeah,
Okay.
I don't know if you want that out there.
Yeah, right.
Right?
I'd be pissed if my coach told somebody that.
100%.
Okay, next tight end, Mark Redman from Louisville.
All right, I do have this one up. That is right. Are you ready? We're good. No crash. 6'5", 250. I've got him at 253, 255, whatever. Same thing. I think he's like a throwback inline tight end. Like, this is your grandpa's tight end or dad's tight end or whatever phrase you want to use. Great inline blocker. Like, I think the dude loves blocking. Not that that's all he can do, but like, he looks like a dude that's out there. Like, you talk about the physical power runners. Like, I talked about Audric Estime last year, and I was like, he wants to hurt you and he loves to do it. That's what I think about Mark Redman when it comes to blocking. He wants to make a play that on Monday when they watch film, they go, oh, did you see what happened? That's what he wants to do as a blocker, and I think he has that ability. Along those same lines, I think he's tough after the catch. He's a big physical pass catcher, strong hands, long legs, long strides. You're not going to necessarily – like, he's not super twitchy. Not a freaky level athlete or anything like that, but he has those long strides to where you're like, I still think his long speed is good. It may take him a little bit to get up there, but he can cover ground. He's not going to be like he can climb the ladder well enough and things of that nature. He's probably that guy that you bring in as your tight end too, that he's going to, especially in goal line situations, he's awesome because he can block for a power run on the goal line, but they also have to respect him so he can leak out and has strong, reliable hands as a red zone target as well. If you're looking for an old school throwback tight end, Mark Redman checks all of those boxes.
Yeah, I mean, that was very well done. I mean, that's kind of pretty much what I have. Smooth route runner, but he's not used that often. This year was his lowest in targets in the last 3 years with 31 targets. And, knowing that his pass catching is not great, if it's an empty set, they're not putting him in the slot. They're taking him off the field sort of thing. But he still managed to get, 400 yards receiving last year, but down to 239 this year. But it's still not bad numbers for a tight end when you're looking at that. And he is super reliable. And then blocking is pretty much exactly what you said. Like, I have like 6 things. Like, he's good in the screen, he's good in zone, like he's good in just sitting in the tight end and anchoring himself and pass. Like, he just loves to block, which is, in my personal opinion, is why he will get drafted, sort of thing. Mm-hmm. I do see it as a flag that he's gone to 3 schools, and that's what I was curious about as well, because he went Washington, San Diego to Louisville, sort of thing. And I see that as a flag transferring through. And I'm curious, I still had a late day 3 pick on him anyways. So the off-season combine interviews and stuff will be interesting to see how he goes. But I would just keep him at a late day 3 to do it as you're blocking. Pretty much, Jacob, exactly what you said. Tight end 3, because a lot of teams are using 3 tight ends on the roster game day. And use him in blocking and then red zone blocking and chipping off. I think that's his first year to a T. And then he can grow and develop as the years go on.
Yep. Okay. Elijah. Okay. Arroyo. Ooh, I didn't do that well.
I think it's Arroyo.
How do you pronounce his last name?
Arroyo.
Thank you.
Do you want to know the only reason I know how to say this, Jim? You should know.
Please.
Bronson Arroyo, the pitcher for the Cincinnati Reds for all those years. I've gone back and forth I grew up kind of a Reds fan, just because my dad was a Browns and a Reds fan, which is odd, but it is what it is. So I watched a lot of Reds baseball until they started trading everybody again, and then I started watching the Guardians. But yeah, Bronson Arroyo was, when I was in my impressionable youth, he was one of their better pitchers. It's the only reason I know how to say that.
Is there any relation or no?
I have no idea. I don't think so.
Yeah.
I'll
That'd
go
be
look that up while you guys are giving the scouting
go.
report.
Awesome. Okay. I really like Arroyo. Like I think that there's a lot of things to like on that Miami offense, and I think he kind of gets lost a little bit, kind of like Damian Martinez, their running back, does. You talk a lot about Restrepo, and you talk about Cam Ward and all the special things that he can do, and it kind of gets lost a little bit. I saw something on Twitter that we got tagged in talking about his vertical ability, what he can do up the seam with that vertical speed. The flashes of big play are there. Like if you are like, if you're not one of those, you're going to take one of these top 3 or 4 guys and you kind of go down a little bit and you're like, man, but I still got to get a big play guy. Arroyo's got it. Like, he's got the big play flash, the ability. We've seen it. I love the way that he can just kind of snatch the ball out of the air. I think his catch radius, what he does with his length, I think is really nice. He does a lot of, he can be a really big mismatch nightmare for people. Like, trying to get him on those linebackers, he's probably a better athlete than them. He'll probably out physical the safeties depending on what it is. He just becomes one of those unique players where you got to kind of have a unique defensive back to kind of cover him. I love that they'll put him in the slot. They'll put him out wide. They'll put him in line. He's a former 4-star recruit. So he was kind of a highly touted guy. I love his yak ability for the size that he's at, which is where what really gets you is he doesn't look like a wide receiver moonlighting as a tight end. Like, he's not super slight or anything like that. But then when he gets vertical on you, you're like, what? What are you doing, like, at that size? I think he's nowhere near a finished product either. And I think that's the thing that I really, like, kind of hang my hat on when talking about him is like, hey, you see this really cool playmaker that can do some really awesome mismatch things. I think he can be a lot better. Like, yeah. And that's the best part about it, I think.
No, I agree. I mean, he has had some injuries throughout his career, so that's kind of where I think, like, he's not that finished product sort of thing, because he had a season-ending injury in 2022, and then he only played 4 games in 2023 because they thought he'd be ready at the start of 2023. He wasn't, so he ended up only getting 4 games out of 2023 sort of thing. I think that Arroyo is somebody, as we talk about, not finished product, so he might start more of a project sort of thing. So his floor may be a little low, but I think his ceiling is the highest when it comes down to it, like what he can become from where he's going to begin in the NFL. You know, he was that 4-star recruit. He ran track. He did the high jump in high school. He owns the 6'2" high jump. So that getting up and mossing people, that's there for it. He's a freak athlete. And when we're talking about his yak and things along those lines, you know, this year he's got 31 catches. 22 of those catches are first downs. He's got 10 yards after the catch per reception, 17 yards per reception with a 9-yard average depth of target. So, you know, throw 9 and then getting 8 more yards after that sort of thing. If we conflate that to 80 targets, we're talking top 5 tight end production, realistically. And when you look at his yards per route run, it's 1.64. And that's really that Miami offense that you mentioned, too, because you're looking at Sam Brown, Restrepo, and Cam Ward and everything along those lines. Watching his tape, he runs so many routes, and that's why his yards per route run are so low, because he's running all these routes. And the amount of times that I saw him throw his hand up and Cam didn't throw it to him was a good amount, like a noticeable amount where he was wide open. But Cam Ward is plays never dead sort of thing. So he's scrambling and not watching, and then, then he's covered sort of thing. So I think who he is a really, really good tight end for the NFL. And when he gets to the NFL is where we're going to see kind of where he is as a tight end. Bill has him as a tight end 6. I think that's fair. I'm curious to see how his offseason goes. I wouldn't be surprised if he fell. I think his talent is tight end 6. I think the NFL is not going to see it immediately and maybe get him in the early 4 or 5, and then you're kind of getting a sleeper sort of thing. So anybody watching that wants a tight end but doesn't want to spend a first or second round, bang the table for Arroyo for sure.
He's one of those guys that I lump him in the same bucket I lump a lot of these running backs in, where it's like, if you've got some big needs at some of the positions that aren't as deep and you want to go there day one and day two, there's a lot of running backs and tight ends that are going to go fourth, fifth round that are going to be very good football players in the
NFL. 100%.
Yep. And as I was listening to you guys, I'm like, okay, I have a fantasy league PPR league that scores double tight ends. He's a taxi squad stash that first year.
All day.
And you get that upside. So,
yeah.
And if anybody that I play fantasy football with is listening to the podcast, I just gave away one of my draft picks.
Mind your own business. Don't listen to that part.
Right. Start trading for second rounders.
Yeah. The star for the day, Colston Loveland from Michigan.
Randall, I've been hogging the screen. It's all you, man.
Oh, me? Oh, you're going to give me Colston Loveland. All right. Let's talk about Colston Loveland. 6'5", 245. He's going to run a real good 40. I wouldn't be surprised if he ran like a 4.65 sort of thing. 4-star prospect out of high school. He's had 2 really good years of production these last 2 years, putting up 654 touchdowns, and then this year almost 600 yards and 5 touchdowns. I love the 2-year consistency out of a tight end. He has quick speed. He has long speed. He has long strides, but his feet are quick on those short and intermediate, so he can look like a vertical, cut it real fast, decelerate, and turn it into a dig or a curl. Love that about him. He lines up mostly in the slot at 50% of his snaps are in the slot, which is kind of wild. And he is in line with the tight end a lot, but when with the line, but when he's in line, he blocks a little bit more than he chips and runs, which he's still good at as well, but he's also a really good blocker as well. He holds on to him. He stays with his man and counters moves. I was watching him just block, and they're trying to swipe his hands down. He's blocking them. Like, he's doing offensive line techniques, which is very impressive in his blocking game. So I love seeing him about that. His route running's really good. He's good at the stem. He's physical, doesn't lose leverage at that stem if a linebacker or cornerback is trying to push him off. He's got a great IQ for zone. While he's running those routes, he also hand fights throughout those routes as well. Like we discussed earlier, he kind of gets those degrees of separation by slapping his hands down. If he's trying to, tug on that jersey to stay with him sort of thing, he gains that separation, which I love. He's a multi-tool tight end. He's great at yak. He's fluid. That run after the catch is probably the best that we've talked about today. Once he catches that ball, he almost gains a step, how quick he is, which I really love to see. He's my tight end 1 for sure in this class. I have him as my tight end 1. I think he is a really, really good tight end. And I'm going to shout out one of our guys, Zang Scouting, because I was looking at him and we were talking about him earlier today, and he comped him to TJ Hawkinson. So I made it a goal to not use TJ Hawkinson, and then I couldn't because he does have a lot of TJ Hawkinson in his game. So TJ Hawkinson's a good comp. I almost did George Kittle because George Kittle kind of is fluid like Colston Loveland a little bit. TJ Hawkinson maybe is a little bit clunky, but he's a little bit bigger sort of thing. But it was a good comp, and yeah, he's my tight end 1.
With Loveland, I wonder if he's getting the same kind of treatment that Emeka Egbuka is getting in terms of like prospect fatigue, just because he's been that guy for a while, and like Tyler Warren's doing all these really awesome things, and is kind of a unicorn in terms of like lining up and doing different things and snapping the ball and catching a touchdown on the same play, which is still insane. But when you look at Loveland's production last year and this year, you remember that last year that was a very run-heavy scheme. This year, when they have thrown the ball, the quarterback play has just been wildly inconsistent, and yet he is somewhat quarterback-proof. I know he's not like putting up 1,200 yards or whatever, but that's just not – those opportunities are just not there for Michigan last year and this year. And so just – I always try to put that kind of out there for anybody that looks at the box score and gets confused why he is where he is when there's guys with more, stats, so to speak. His ability to attack in high point is awesome. Like, that ball is up in the air and it's up for grabs. He's coming down for it. He's going to climb that ladder. He's going to get all the way up there. He's got a big catch radius. He's going to do that. Good route runner, vertical speed. I had good post-catch burst as a note. So I thought it was really interesting that you're like, oh, as soon as he catches, he gains a step. It's weird. It's flat out weird. It's like he could be running like all day long. He could just be running 15 miles an hour. And then as soon as you throw it to him, he's running 15-2. And you're like, why? Like, I've watched you run for an hour and you've not gotten any faster. But as soon as the football's in your hand, you're just like, this is what I'm going to do. And it's like, it's almost like he understood both this year and last year that his opportunities were probably going to be somewhat limited because they weren't throwing the ball that much. And so he made sure to get absolutely everything he could get out of every snap. I think he could add some size and power and become even more physical. Like, I think he's got that frame. Look at him. He's got the frame. Right. Not that he's not a big, powerful 100%. Guy, but he can. I think he'd be even more. I think he's one of those guys that goes into an NFL strength and conditioning program, and that's all he needed. It's like just it to be that main focus, and all of a sudden he's playing at 250, 252 or something like that, and there's an extra pop in his step, and he's tight end one. As much as I wanted to like spice things up and throw Tyler Warren up there and something like that, Colston Loveland is just. If you're in the first round, you're looking for a difference maker, you're looking for a guy to create some mismatches, he might be my favorite pass catcher, period. Even maybe over Ted McMillan. Yeah. He's up there.
Ooh, that is spicy.
Yes.
Yeah.
That's spicy. I haven't heard that one. That's definitely spicy.
Yeah.
I'm going to be crazy.
Yeah, I like that. I love that confidence in him because he can do it all. That's the thing is I'm not gonna tell you that that's not possible because of who he is, sort of thing. You're right. He's just so efficient, and every time he touches the ball, that you can't really deny that he can do anything really at that point. There you go. And Bill's here to spice up the chat too.
All right.
So we in this episode we had 3 of the top 4 tight ends. Right, because we had Loveland, Helm, and Fannin, right? So next week, Tyler Warren is one of the tight ends, and that will round out the scouting reports for, I think we were sorting through close to 36 tight ends, right, as far as a very deep tight end class. So
exactly.
Before we wrap up the episode, let's pause for a quick commercial. Like, Randall, do you want to tell everybody kind of who you are and where they can find your content?
Yeah, absolutely. You can find me on Blue Sky and Twitter or X at Randall Slifer. I pretty much put all my stuff on there, and I try to engage with everybody on there. So if you reach out to me, I will respond for sure.
And Jacob, you want to tell everybody where they can find you?
You know that for a while I was telling everybody what my Blue Sky at was wrong.
Yeah.
I was like, just go on there. It's Jacob Dash. No, it's just Jacob Roach on there. Like, it's just all one word. It's right there. You can find me on X at Roachism13. I do draft content over for the OBR, for the Orange and Brown Report. So the OBR.com. There's a Tier 1 film room article that just dropped for offensive tackles. It's talked about the first rounders that I've got there. If you want to check that out. And also I do draft content on the Orange and Brown YouTube, which is youtube.com/@Orange and Brown Report.
Fantastic. So I am at NFL Draft Fanatic, no I in Fanatic on X, and the YouTube channel has the same name. The Draft Professor is an interactive mock draft simulator. So if you haven't looked at it, what that means is that when you do a mock draft, when somebody else comes in, they're going to see your mock draft picks. So if Jacob comes in and does a mock for Cleveland, and then I come in and I do a mock for Buffalo, there's a really good chance I'm going to see Jacob's picks for Cleveland if those players are available. So
a great simulator.
It's competitive, non-contact mock drafting.
There you go.
Kind of thing.
I love that.
So out of all of the tight ends, actually, so one of the questions I had is Gadsden was covered last week.
Yeah.
And then Arroyo this week. Which one's higher for each of you?
So Gadsden is a wide receiver and a tight end body sort of thing. That's how Syracuse uses them. It's strictly pass catching sort of thing, and his numbers show it, breaking Syracuse records and stuff like that, which I love to see being from Western New York. I think that Gadsden can come into the NFL with better production and probably more snaps because he's had good production and he's been on the field a lot more. No real injury concerns, but I do believe that Arroyo's ceiling is higher than Gadsden's for sure.
And I think when for me, like overall drafting philosophy in terms of which type of player I want to pick changes as the draft goes on. Because especially once I get to day 3, I'm just looking for traits and upside a lot of times. Like sometimes I'll go with the player that's like has a really, really high floor because if you get one of those in the 5th round, like that's kind of feels like a no-brainer. So for me, yes, I do think Arroyo will have the best, that has the higher ceiling, and they're going to be in that type of range. So that's probably who I would probably have Arroyo higher, although he'll take more time to make an impact more likely than not.
I like when I ask a question like that and you guys have to look and say, "Ooh, wow, that's close."
Yeah,
I can tell from the look in your face. And that's like, I listen to like all the scouting reports, and that's like, I'm building my board as I'm listening to you guys. So like, that's the genius or therein or whatever you want to call that's in my brain. So
that's why I listen to a lot of this stuff while I'm driving. So I'm like taking all these weird mental notes because like I can't pull my phone up and like take the notes as I'm driving. So I'm always like, where did I do that?
Yeah.
Yes. So this channel has daily content. So I believe right now, Jacob, I think this is the only podcast that you're doing here, but you've done some stuff on Saturdays and today's Wednesday, right? Yeah. And then Randall's on Wednesday. You can also see Randall on Friday doing some wide receivers and corners. But we have different positions that we're covering every day. So if there's a player that you want to know about in the top 175, there's a really good chance that this podcast channel has already covered them or is about to, because we're wrapping up our scouting reports. All of them are going to be done before the NFL regular season ends. So that content's out there. So if you're looking for a player, check the YouTube channel. And if you don't find it on the YouTube channel, feel free to ask us. We've covered plenty of players that fans have asked us to cover. So on behalf of everybody that's listening and watching, thank you. Hit the subscribe button on YouTube. Hit the like button on YouTube. Follow Randall Slifer. Follow Jacob Roach. Follow at NFL Draft Fanatic on X. We look forward to seeing you on another podcast again. Thank you very much, everybody.
Thank you.